any legal advice on how you should get a hold of this video? This video could help in the investigation.
I would love to be able to get my hands on the video. Lieutenant Larson, who was very nice at the Anoka County Jail, she disappeared, okay, after she showed us the videos.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, you see, we got to get into this, Diana. So, and then here's another example of the minute something's trying to help you there, it turned on her, and what did they transfer her or something?
Well, she had a voice message on her phone. She gave me her direct number. Voice message said that she would be back 5 months later. That was supposed to be, I believe, May 6th. She still isn't back, and they don't think she's coming back now at this point. Another interesting fact was that the person they put in charge of Dave Pascal, the jail administrator there in Anoka, was very unhelpful. There was actually, my son ended up with a traumatic brain injury. He did have one prior to this back in early 2000. And this by far is the worst. His brain is now starting to atrophy. It's shrinking. His entire brain is shrinking. He just turned 32 years old. He was gone for 4 days. He wasn't on the jail roster. Couldn't find him. Calling the morgue, calling the hospitals, calling everybody. Got a hold of Detective Patterson, Gary Patterson, in Anoka County at the Sheriff's Department there. Spoke with him, and he informed me my son was in ICU at the hospital, Mercy Hospital, and that they expected that he would be transferred back to the jail later that day. That if I were wise, I would bond my son out, because there were 3 more just like Darcy Lewis, who had just assaulted my son. Now, my son had asked for a keep separate from Darcy, by the way, before this ensued, because he saw it coming, and they wouldn't do it.
So he mentioned to them, look, this guy's been giving me hassles, and he's going to try to rape me. And, you know, and they did nothing.
They did absolutely nothing. Nothing. They allowed this to happen. They tasered my son. He's got taser burns on him to this day. He has scars from being tasered. They were gassed. They were tasered. It gets more horrific, though. When I did bond him out, it was late at night on April the 4th, 2013. And when I waited for him 2.5 hours to come out, they weren't busy at all in the lobby at all. Kept going in, asking what's taking so long. Well, your son's having a hard time dressing. That was the answer I was getting. Twice I got the same answer. When he does finally come out, he has a really good-sized deputy helping him along. He's inching his way with a walker. He can't focus. You can see that. One pupil is just hugely dilated. His right pupil was huge. Left pupil was pinpoint. Very traumatized, slurring his words, crying, throwing up, headache, and the list goes on and on and on. Couldn't hardly stand up at all. The deputy helps me get him in the car. Me and a friend of mine, we get him in the car. The deputy seatbelts him in. We thank him. We bring him home. The following morning, I take him to the local hospital. This is in a matter of 4 or 5 hours. And we were at the hospital. My son freaks out because they try to scan a wristband in the emergency room. He thought it was a taser. So he never got, any help there. Another 24 hours goes by, and he continues to get worse. I'm giving him the seizure regimen that they sent home from the jail, as directed, keeping it completely away from him. And then ended up having to call the Mayo Clinic because he got so bad. He couldn't sit up. He couldn't cath himself. He has to self-cath because of the spinal cord injury. Couldn't even do that for himself. He couldn't feed himself. He couldn't focus on anything. He couldn't remember things. Like, for instance, don't get out of your bed, I'll be right back. And he'd forget that he couldn't walk, and he'd try to get out of bed, and he'd fall flat on his face. Things like that. And so, call 911, have an ambulance out to my house, and we rode together to St. Cloud, which is in Stearns County, and went to St. Cloud Hospital. That's where we were told to go by the Mayo Clinic. We get there. We're in the emergency department. My son still doesn't know where he's at. Things are still worse. The doctor inquires about any medication changes. I said, no, these are the meds he arrived with. I've been giving them to him as directed. I just got him out of my jail, and this is what, I brought all the meds with me. And he runs the labs and determines that my son is overdosed on pheno-barbitol, and that if I hadn't have brought him in, he would have died. He would have been dead. Also, he's been checked out by the neurologist. I told the neurologist what happened. The guy is standing in the hallway crying. This doctor is, as I'm telling him the story about, the assault, the brain injuries. So we're there 5 days. 5 days, the first 5 days we're going along. I'm sitting with him day and night, redirecting him. He doesn't know where he is. He doesn't know what's going on. He's thinking, he's still in jail. He's wanting to leave. He wants to go home. Having to call him by a name that I called him as a really young boy. And that was the only way that he could make the connection.
Wow.
Who I was.
That's unbelievable.
Oh, it's horrid. He couldn't.
So he was on top of it. He was paranoid because he had been beaten and tasered. So he was paranoid, and then again lost in this delirium.
Yes.
And they intentionally overprescribed medicine that he was taking.
Somewhere between the jail, when they took him from the jail, somewhere between the jail, the hospital for the assault, and back to the jail, he was overdosed on pheno-barbitol.
Right.
Which has a very long half-life, I'm told. Takes a lot of time to get that out of your system. Plus the traumatic brain injury and another spinal cord injury on top of that.
Unbelievable.
And then the most amazing thing happened. After 5 days of being in the hospital with him, we were moved from one floor to another floor, to the neurological floor. And the day that we got there, new people, he's afraid of men, terrified of men, just really scared, very, very, very scared and fear for his life. He truly was. He was reliving, this assault over and over and over in his mind. And
well, it truly is it's a traumatic experience. He's got he has PTSD, and clearly, and that's again a result of being abused and tortured.
Exactly. Exactly. This man tried to rape him. Yes, it is.
If somebody tries to rape you, and now, for a minute, let's talk about this scumbag. I got a picture of him. I'm going to show everybody. This is the guy.
Okay.
This is the guy who told him he was going to rape him, and he warned authorities that this guy wants to rape me. He wants to hurt me, and when he resisted, he beat the hell out of him and put him in a coma. And put Mark in a coma. Well,
he wasn't in a coma quite yet, but yeah.
Well,
we get there a little later in the story.
Skull. I mean, busted his head up. He messed him up.
No, he gave him a really bad brain injury, very bad. In fact, it showed up in the scan that they did not even a month later, something like 15 days later, a CAT scan that they did when they were finally able to calm him down enough to get him in a CAT scan machine. They were able to see that, there was severe brain damage there.
So, and now, how could they with all of this obvious evidence, how could they possibly say that his actions, like he was, that he could be charged with a crime? I mean, he's clearly under stress, under duress, under
the influence of pheno-barbitol.
The influence of pheno-barbitol. Yeah, you go. Yeah, we didn't even go into that. I mean, it's unbelievable.
And then he has a traumatic brain injury.
And he has a pre-existing traumatic brain injury as well.
Correct.
I mean, Diana, this is just it's insane. It doesn't even like I mean, how could they even put a charge when you put all the unless of course that's what they want to do for some reason.
Well, I believe that's the case. I believe that's exactly what's going on here.
Me too.
I had blown the whistle on a couple of different people that were, one was a guy, years back. We used to live in that town in Anoka. My kids grew up there. And I'd blown the whistle on this man that was being killed, literally killed, in a prison. I got a call from someone that I barely knew that knew I was an advocate. So he calls me up and he tells me what's going on with this guy that's celled up next to him, this Gregory Stampley, Stampley. And Mr. Stampley, they had him on a backboard, restrained, naked. They were coming into his cell, beating this mentally ill 45-year-old man and taking a fire hose to him. Every shift this went on. I called everybody and anybody that would listen to me. Unfortunately, help didn't come soon enough, and Mr. Stampley was killed in the Stillwater prison here in Minnesota. Now, my name appeared in the Star Tribune as the person who had alerted these people, okay? I have an officer from Anoka come to my door at my home, holding the article from the newspaper, asking me, is this you? I said, yes, it is. He said, I can't believe you did this, Diana. I said, I can't believe you people do things like this. And he walked off, shaking his head.
That is insane. I know, in other words, like, how could you do this? How could you
rat us out?
Yes, how could you rat us? It's a godless world. It's unbelievable. These people are what pleasure do they take out of, I mean, they're sadists. What pleasure can you possibly take out of, abusing somebody that really is, I mean, the weakest of the weak? It's like, again, it's like the Nazis, the T4,
Exactly.
It really is. That's why I was saying this whole thing does tie together, Diana. I was mentioning about the sex trafficking and the mind control, this MK Ultra,
yes,
and somehow it is all related to the Satanism, the satanic ritual abuse. It all sort of is revolving around this whole thing, and then you got the prison system, and you have
the hospital system,
and the hospital system, and then you really sort of are using what's called trauma-based mind control.
Yes,
that is
very
what
much
it truly
so.
is. This is, and it doesn't, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to put the pieces together. But I threw them all out in the beginning of the show because I think we can start to put them together. And after the break, in just a couple of minutes, we'll be able to delve into this. And we're going to go as far as it takes tonight, ladies and gentlemen. There's a lot to cover. I definitely would like to touch on the fact that this is a systematic problem. What's going on here, what Diana is facing with her son, is no different than what happens in the conservatorship issue, where fortunes are stolen and raided by conservators like Melody Scott in Riverside, California, who's and people like Charlie Castle, who was a homeless man who it appears had assets, like he was just one of those affluent crazy millionaires that looked like he was like a homeless person. Well, when they found out about that, they created a conservatorship and they murdered him, and the conservators took his estate by fraud and manipulation, and this is all out. This is all outed by investigative journalist Janet Phelan. This is just one example. There are so many. So we're going to talk about everything and go farther into this. But so stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few minutes. More truth, literally 5 seconds away.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
There's a need for a new world order, but it has different characteristics in different parts of the world.